Welcome to you all to the Special Masters interview this morning for Zurich Film Festival 2024. My name is Hannah Wise. I'm a journalist, moderator, and I'm thrilled to be back here again with the film festival for another year, especially with such an amazing guest this morning, who I know is very, very excited to be here. After all, his film, The Order, last night opened the film festival for 2024, and if that wasn't enough, he himself took home the Golden Eye Award last night, not just for his performance in The Order, but in recognition of his career performances, which have been extensive. So I know you're all excited to be here. I am too. Our guest today is, of course, one of the most versatile, innovative, and influential actors of our generation. He is the star of stage, of big screen, of small screen. He's worked with the who's who of Hollywood, both in front of and behind the camera, resulting in multiple awards, including a BAFTA and nominations for 2 Academy Awards. Please give a big Zurich welcome to Jude Law.
Hello, good morning.
So, I'm pleased to hear that your microphone works.
Yes.
It does, good. That's always a great start. Jude, thank you so much for being here today. How was your opening last night?
It was such a thrill, you know. I really enjoy visiting film festivals. There's a kind of energy and a passion that I share, you know, with the film-going public and the attention that film festivals give to the medium. And so to be there for opening night, especially with a film that my company produced, was, you know, a really special moment. And to be recognized for my career, even though I feel like I'm just starting, was wonderful. So it was a fun night. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. But is this your first time in Zurich, actually? I don't know this.
No, first time in a long time.
Okay.
But I've been before and came quite regularly as a child. We had, my family had friends who were living in London but were Swiss, and just outside of Zurich. We'd come in the summer and holiday just outside of Zurich.
Okay, brilliant. Well, welcome back. It's great
Thanks.
to have you here. So The Order, this is the movie that obviously we opened the film festival with last night. You play FBI agent Terry Hug. And he
Husk.
has to... Husk. I'm so sorry. I'm nervous.
There's a difference between a husk and a hug. and Terry is not a hugger. He's more of a husk.
Okay. And I mean, he's a husk of a man, right? He's supposed to be this.
That's what the writer kept saying. We kept saying, why Terry Husk? And he went, he's a husk of a man.
Exactly. I mean, he has a difficult life, and he is a very serious man, and he's tracking down this kind of neo-Nazi group.
Yeah.
And what amazes me is that it's set in the 80s, which of course, given my age, I love, but it's said that it's historic but very timely piece, and you yourself have even said that, you know, it's a film that needed to be made now. So why is it that this film that's set in the 80s is so relevant for today?
As with any great story, it is rooted in its time setting and has tentacles, shall we say, that stretch to now. It's a story about the early seeds, the early recognition of extremism and the rise of fascist sects in America. It has, in its more simplified way, the essence of an individual trying to nip that in the bud. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately we live in very divisive times. We live in times where we see far-right movements on the rise, and I think we all see, or see the line being drawn in decisions we have to make. And it was very much folded into the film. It's not a film that hits you over the head with that, or with that political question, but it's there in its DNA. And so it also sits very comfortably in a genre. So it has this message, it has this historical, it's a great story historically, and then it has a contemporary relevance, which I find is often the best way to deliver messages, political messages, or at least social messages. It's not out and out a political film. It's not out and out a social commentary film. It's a genre film, but it delivers its question, I think, really subtly.
It's also a very beautiful film. I mean, the setting itself is really kind of quite incredible. It's in this beautiful landscape, and when you see the opening scene, it's quite, you know, a hard opening scene, and then it just cuts boom to this beautiful landscape. And I felt like when I was watching the film the whole way through, these beautiful landscapes just popped in exactly at the minute then I needed a break, because it's a tough film. Is that what attracted to you? Was it the setting? Was it the character? Was it the story? What?
Well, I should say this is on behalf of Justin, our wonderful director, because once he came on board, he had a very clear vision for this piece, and he brings so much as a director. First of all, as he put it, he lives in Tasmania and grew up in Australia, and talks about how landscape watches you. Ancient mountains sort of sit back and judge us and say, figure it out, you know, learn. And so it was important to him. It was set in Idaho. We actually filmed it in Calgary because Calgary offered 3 or 4 different types of landscape and incredible lighting. I think it was Terrence Malick who first went up there in the 70s and realized you could shoot magic hour for nearly 4 hours. So you get this beautiful light after 6:30 p.m. right up to about 11 p.m. You can still shoot without lighting. And it was important, given the setting, that rural Idaho, that we find a landscape that really lets this human drama unfold, as I said, with some sort of ancient judgment, because you're watching people do terrible things to each other. What interested me, well, my partner Ben, who's here today and was with us last night celebrating the opening, read it first. He had a relationship with Zach Balin, the writer. Zach first had an idea after the 2016 election and sort of followed his nose into various ideas that led him, I think, to Timothy McVeigh. When he visited the Oklahoma museum that looked at Timothy Veigh's actions, there was a copy of the Turner Diaries. He learnt about the Turner Diaries led him to the Order, and we couldn't, once you read it, you couldn't believe this story hadn't been told before. So there was a sense of, what a great opportunity to tell this story. There was another great opportunity to make a genre film. Justin came on board as director and really reminded us of how some of my favorite films in the 70s and 80s, in the hands of some of the great directors, Friedkin, Lumet, Michael Mann, were making elevated genre films, and it seemed to be something that stopped happening. I don't know why. It's like genre suddenly became not a bad word, but a word for commercial filmmaking as opposed to intelligent filmmaking. You combine the two and you really have something, I think, very interesting. And Ben also pointed out that this role was perhaps something I hadn't done before. There was something very male and stubborn and broken about him that I really found fascinating. And the idea of trying to find a fragility within that. And what was fortunate was I wasn't playing a character who, it wasn't based on any of the real special agents. We actually made him an amalgam. A lot of the other characters in the film are based on real characters and are represented as such. It seemed important that Husk was a sort of composite and really was used in the best way to tell the story. So the whole backstory of a family lost, the physical deficiency of the stent that you realise he's had because he has a scar and he bleeds from the nose because he takes these pills and drinks too much. All of that was us trying to work out how best to serve the story, really. I wanted you to feel like his best years were behind him and really question whether he had it in him. I told you I had long answers. I'll keep rambling on all day.
It's all right. They're here to hear you. Don't worry.
I certainly heard myself. Everyone's falling asleep.
Nobody is falling asleep. Absolutely not. But I do have a couple of kind of interesting stories that I came across about the filming of this and the preparation for this. I want to talk to you a lot about characterization because I know you go to great lengths to get into your character. But I read that actually your character and Nicholas Holt's character, who plays Bob Matthews, you were kind of kept apart until the very, very first scene that you had together. I mean, did that have a great impact on this scene itself? I mean, what was the idea behind it?
I still don't know whether that was a plan of Justin's or whether it just started to happen. Actually thinking about it, knowing Justin, it probably was a plan. He's a fantastic hands-on director. He really loves working with actors. Not all directors do. It's very interesting. Even some great directors, you turn up and they really want you to have your job. You be ready and just stand over there and they'll film you. He loves the process, and he would send all of us manifestos and challenges as actors, and things like go to bed as your character, wake up as your character, how does your character wash, what does he eat for breakfast, record me a memory of his from his first Christmas. I mean, really weird stuff but it really makes you think about who they are, and you try to embody them before you get there. And when we started, we were rehearsing, and it was natural that I would go into rehearse, and my team would come in, the deputy, the other special agent, the people I interact with, and then I'd leave, and Nick would go in and do his rehearsals, and it just started. It felt like two films in a way, two stories, and the more we progressed, Nick would always be filming when I wasn't filming. So slowly we ended up just sort of never seeing each other, and we got into about 6 weeks. Maybe 4 or 5, and then on the horizon was the first scene. We only have 2 scenes together, but the first scene we actually interact, and it just seemed natural that so the first time we meet is on camera, in the scene when I approach him at the car and I'm smoking and I offer him a cigarette, and that was the first time we'd seen each other. Although one of the challenges that Justin gave me was to follow Nick, because he said, I really want you to build up a Bible of Bob Matthews, of Nick playing this guy. I want you to know him inside out as Husk would. So, I did all this research on his character, and then when he got to Calgary, I hired a car and followed him for a day.
And apparently it was successful, because I read in an interview with Nick that he had no idea.
No, he had no idea. I thought he had been told, and he didn't know until we told him. In Venice about a month ago. Oh,
so you feel like a real FBI agent?
I didn't really. I actually just felt like a bit of a creep.
It's quite interesting.
Hiding behind my wheel like this.
Because you've got 2.
And it was really boring. He went to the shops. He went to the shops. He went for a coffee and then went home. It wasn't like he did anything. He didn't do anything interesting.
Why did I not think of asking that question? That would have been brilliant. But it's 2 Brits playing 2 Americans. You've got an Australian writer. It's a really Australian director. It's really a fun kind of amalgam of people playing this kind of real American story. Yeah, it's cool.
Again, I'll steal Justin's answer to that. As he put it, when you put together a piece, it sort of doesn't always help to look at people's passports. It's just who's right for the job and who brings what, and. I think sometimes with filmmaking, storytelling in general, you can get yourself in a knot. I think if you're restricted to only casting or only drawing on people that are specific or true to the story. Do you see what I mean? I think it has to be more about what a person brings emotionally or what a person brings as a personality. But I think also this is a very international story. It's about an American slice of history, but as I said before, its tentacles really sort of, you know, are long, and I think we're all at a point where this, sadly, is a story that's relevant to us.
Let me talk about characterization, because you do go to some lengths to get into character, not just, you know, tailing your co-stars, but, you know, in Firebrand, when you were playing Henry VIII, you also kind of not just changed your body a little bit, but also, you know, you wore this scent of kind of blood and horror to get you into character. You've learned to play instruments to get you into character. Is that really important for you, to really kind of embody a character before you play?
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. It's always about plausibility, you know, and about being able to offer some kind of authenticity, truth, and I think if you're, it's interesting that, you know, people talk about method, or they talk about disappearing into character. The truth is, when you step on set, it's a very fake environment. You know, you can be as method as you want, but there's a camera, there's a mark, there's a light, you have to hit that. People saying action, people standing over, oh, we've got to go again, we didn't get the sound. So there's only so far, you've got to acknowledge that there's fakery, you've got to acknowledge that it's smoke and mirrors, it's a magic trick, right? It's alchemy. But at the same time, in order to make it as authentic as possible, you've got to have some kind of truth. So to be faking an instrument and faking it, I mean, then your layers of fake become suddenly, the whole thing falls apart in my mind. So just trying to bring some kind of authenticity. And also it's a great excuse. I mean, what a wonderful offshoot of a job to walk away and learn how to play a piano or a flute or learn to sail a boat or whatever it might be. And in the moment, if you're not thinking about that, you can kind of lose yourself to a degree while someone's poking a camera at you and someone else is holding a boom over your head. And you know, it just gives the character more dimension, I think. And what's interesting is the big showy things that you learn are obviously easier to record, but sometimes it's the smallest things. Sometimes it's the socks you wear, right? Or like Justin advised us in preparation for this, you know, how does he brush his teeth? How does he cut? He said, does he brush his teeth? I mean, weird little things like that. And scent is a big part of that. Like, what we smell in an environment can create real atmosphere very, very quickly. And so on Firebrand, I talked a lot with Karim, the director of that, about atmosphere. And if you're trying to create an authentic atmosphere which is 500 years old, it's quite hard, you know. You're sort of, so we were thinking about elements. We were thinking about how cold it must have been all the time in these castles. Even if you're King of England, right? You're cold because it's damp. There's no heating. The fire's always going, so the fire always smells. You've got dogs and animals around you and food. What does that smell like? And I found out that Henry's leg, which was rotting, stank. So like, what did he smell like? And you start layering all that up, and suddenly you've got a kind of sense of, you can smell it off the screen, and gets interesting.
But then you can go home and wash it off and, you know, get back to your own life.
The problem with that scent was that it was really hard to wash off. So, luckily I was living on my own at the time. That's the other thing. When you go to certain lengths, you look back and you think, what must I have been like to live with? And when I was preparing for Terry Husk, I had 2 children under 3. And so wasn't sleeping very much. And I went in, and I got a cold. And I went into rehearsal, and I was like this. I was like, oh God, sorry. I was like, I'm in a terrible shape. I can't slept. I feel sick. And Justin was like, that's it. That's the character. This is brilliant. Can you stay like this for 30 days? And I thought, well.
But your voice is incredible on that film. I was like so surprised. Like this was you, because you're amazing at the American accent, and it's so deep.
No sleep. That's what we all do.
Okay, so these are the tricks of the trade.
No.
But it's not all. Come on, it's not all doom and gloom. I know that you were also, when you were filming.
It's not doom and gloom at all.
No, but
this is what I love doing. It's
exactly,
just odd.
And you went to an Italian island for you know, some weeks before the talented Mr. Ripley, so you could get, you know, not just a suntan but really live the part.
That was actually a direction. Cool. I mean, I was ordered to this island.
Yeah, shame.
To get to Suntown. I know. That's one of those jobs I look back on. I was like 23, no, I was 24 or 25, and I was 25 because it was 25 years ago last year that we made The Talented Mr. Ripley. And I just thought that that's what movies were like, you know, hanging out on the beach. Yeah. It was like my second film. Eating amazing food, sailing yachts, you know.
The dream.
Unfortunately, never repeated the experience.
And so, you know, I mean, you have quite a few complex characters now under your belt, not just Husk, but I also, this week in preparation for today, I watched The Nest. Oh, yeah. And Rory O'Hara, I mean, he is complex. Yes. And that whole movie, I was like, oof, you know, it's dark.
It starts light.
Yes. Yeah. And then it gets really dark. I mean, are you attracted to complex characters?
Sure.
Yeah. Why not?
I mean, I quite like variety, you know. I mean, sometimes it's fun. Yeah, I think it's. You could say that I have a tendency to. Well, no, everybody's complicated, right? We're all contradictory and complex, and we all have issues that we either deal with or don't deal with, and you know, and so if you're even in say I don't know, a film like Captain Marvel, where I'm playing, you know, a space marshal, right, called Yon Rog. I mean, in order to make that plausible, you have to work out why he behaves the way he does, and you know, that's just the fun. That's the meat of being an actor, in my opinion. That's the stuff. That's why I get up. I love all that stuff. So when it's in the part, when it's innate, when it's actually in the writing, like Rory O'Hara, what an amazing role to you know, on the page. I'm really drawn to that, absolutely. And it keeps what I do vital. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, his whole thing is obviously, you know, this work and life balance, and, you know, kind of trying to find some kind of halfway, I guess, between the two. I mean, do you find that quite difficult in real life? Because, I mean, you have this obviously very public, professional life, but then you obviously are a normal human and obviously want your own privacy in your family life as well. Do you find that hard to balance in reality?
Not really, no. I've been doing it 30 odd years, and I mean, it's I've realized in the last few years that it's absolutely my life, my passion. I love it, and it sits in my head very comfortably. I naturally go there. I think I've realized, even when I'm not necessarily working on stuff. But now with the company, I mean, I'm always thinking and working on stuff, and I love it. It's where I naturally go. It's where my imagination goes. And being able to really harvest and foster that is a wonderful way to spend one's time. It's sort of like manifesting dreams, you know. And my home life is well, fortunately I'm with an amazing partner who loves what I love and supports that. And I think, like anyone else, also I have the good fortune of getting home, and home is like, you get on with that reality, and then you go to work and you get on with that reality. But the balance is more about just trying to get enough sleep.
And I think I just heard somebody kind of...
It's always about sleep for me. It's like, can I get 6 hours?
Yes, we can relate. Okay, so did you always want to be an actor? Did you always have this kind of drive in you? I know you were quite inspired by your parents when you were young.
Yeah, I did. They were teachers who wanted to be involved in the theatre. They loved the theatre. My mum eventually retired young and set up a theatre company, so my house was full of people rehearsing plays and putting on plays. I remember coming home or coming downstairs from my homework, and there were always groups of people. This is in the 70s and the 80s, so everyone's smoking and drinking and talking about theatre, and that was just the environment I grew up in, and it felt very exciting and thrilling. And I always remember loving, as a child, watching adults play, which is what it felt like, seeing them being silly or doing stuff. And it felt like such a, you know, as opposed to being serious adults, it felt like such a wonderful way to be. And it felt very natural to me, maybe because it was a part of my childhood. And I don't remember ever wanting to do anything else. Film, in a way, was the, what's the word, revelation, because theatre was something that I grew up around, and I loved film, but the idea of making film felt very distant, very other, because it was so far away.
And I mean, you, obviously, if you start out on stage and you make this transition to film, was that always the intention, to go to film? I mean,
No.
I guess it was a dream if you thought it was
a dream, yeah. It sort of took me by surprise. I was very much ensconced in theatre. I'd done a lot of theatre by the time I was in my early 20s, around London and out of London, and tours around Europe too, in Italy, and then was offered a film, and it felt, that felt like a new chapter. In the UK at the time, or certainly from where I grew up, I wouldn't have known how to get into a film. Theatre felt just much more immediate.
And do you do much theatre now, or?
Yeah, still now and again.
You still
it's been a couple of years, but I think not since I still do theatre.
Yeah. And how is it working on these two different mediums? Are they vastly different, or?
Yeah, they are. They require, if I go back to what I was talking about before with, you know, truth, plausibility, preparation, they are. I always like to say that theatre is more an actor's medium and film is a director's medium. The director is choosing where to point the audience in a film, when to cut, when you blink, when you breathe, what you're watching, what the world is. In theatre, you know, you can choose, I could be acting there, you could be acting there, and you choose who you're looking at. The director, you know, the audience are in charge. So as an actor, you're much freer to own the space and the 2 hours, whatever it may be, that the play exists. And there's a certain amount of projection in theatre. There's a wonderful sort of, well, the live quality adds a huge amount.
Yeah.
You know, you can stand up in a theatre and scream out and you become part of the play. If you stand up and scream in a cinema, the film carries on.
Yes. We're going to get to questions in about 5 to 10 minutes, so maybe I can kind of look ahead, what's in the future for you. You mentioned Jude Law, obviously.
I mentioned what?
Jude Law earlier? No? Oh, you talked about Marvel. I'm talking now about Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
I get all the Jude
Law.
Oh, yes. Okay, this is my pronunciation.
No.
What can I say?
I didn't know how to pronounce that either. And I played it.
Okay, so are you excited about being part of the Star Wars world?
It was a you know, I'm just always curious to look behind those various curtains. And obviously as a child I grew up watching Star Wars, and it was a huge part of how I played. You know, it was a big part of how I first assumed characters. You know, I was Han Solo or Chewbacca running around the playground, going boo boo. And so to be able to go into that world was fascinating.
Did it ruin it for you, though?
No.
No?
No, it brought it more alive, actually. And what I thought they did that was very important and special was the protagonists in this show that I've done are children. So they sort of brought the wonder back, which I worried that at times it was taking itself a bit too seriously. You know, there's a joy and an innocence to the first 3 films that I grew up watching. And by having the protagonists be 10, 11, 12 years old, really reminded me of, that was the age I was when I first saw the films, and I think it brought a joy to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you're working with puppets and animatronics, which is all new.
That was very new, and wonderful. Yeah, these amazing teams of puppeteers who, you're in a scene where you're acting opposite puppets or a robot, and you're actually working opposite the puppeteers, and that communication is unique, really unique, and they're unique talents.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're talking about Skeleton Crew, which is premiering this December, so we've got that to look forward to. But also, next year, Black Rabbit comes out. Now, this is you and Jason Bateman playing brothers.
Yes.
So we will see the return of the American accent, I'm assuming?
Yep, it's a different American accent. That's right, we play a pair of, we're nefarious brothers who were once in a band. Had a kind of one-hit wonder in the 90s, turn of the millennium, and that fell apart, and then they own a restaurant, and that fell apart, and they separate and spend many years apart, and I play the younger brother who finds some success, and Jason plays the older brother who returns and brings with him all his baggage.
And you're executive producing this one.
Yes.
In Black Rabbit, but you also produced in The Order.
Yes.
Is this now how you see your career developing, or is this important to you to have this kind of involvement in everything that you do now?
Yes, is the short answer. There's something very fulfilling about getting on board a project early on and really being a part of how it's built economically and creatively. It feels like you're really holding the reins and can have a greater input and overview. There's a certain powerlessness sometimes as an actor when you're up just for hire. First of all, you're sitting around waiting for someone else to ask you, and there's something very empowering about looking for material that interests you. And also, by the way, just creating work that doesn't necessarily involve you, seeing things come to life, it's a really important part of my future, I hope, and something that I hope to do more and more.
Okay, well, I've asked you one of my kind of fast answer questions, which is what's next, but maybe we can go through the other four very quickly, and then we can open the floor to our audience. So what was your favorite role?
To play?
Yes.
It's hard. It's hard to say, because each one is a little slice of my life, a little experience. My useless answer is usually the one I just played, because it's so fresh in my head, and I literally finished Black Rabbit last week. And I had a wonderful time making it, living in New York, working with Jason. Being a producer was a huge part of that, and carrying this wonderful team for 6 months. And all the roles that you've mentioned have been really good experiences.
Yeah, and I guess I asked you a very unfair question. It's like asking you to choose your favorite child, I guess.
Oh, which is the favorite part? Yeah, I mean, honestly, just because of the 25-year anniversary, I've been, and because of the recent Netflix show, I've been asked a lot recently about talented Mr. Ripley, and that has a very special place in my heart, my memory, working with Anthony for the first time, Anthony Minghella, and the environment that I talked a bit about, and that character. There was something very empowering about playing someone that confident at that age.
Somebody just shouted out earlier, Watson, by the way, so they're a big
he
fan.
Was fun.
He was also fun, I'm quite sure.
Fun to play Watson.
Yeah, absolutely. The moment you knew you made it, when did you really realize that, actually, I've made it? This is great. Or is that?
No, I think that's all relative. Honestly, I don't know that I have. In that, I feel like there's lots to do, and lots to prove, and lots to explore still. So I don't know what making it means. I've got memories where I looked around at my life, and it was, it was filled with experiences that I could only have dreamt of as a boy. You know, visiting Spielberg, rehearsing AI in his house, and then flying back on Concorde to go to a movie set to shoot a film in Poland. I mean, crazy stuff like that. But when you're in the moment, that's just what you're doing to do the job. It's almost more in hindsight, you look back and go, wow, that was pretty extraordinary. Or, you know, experiences of working with directors who maybe have passed now, or, you know, great filmmakers. In the moment, they're your director and you're just relating to them on a day-to-day basis. It's with hindsight you look back and think, gosh, yeah, that was a very special experience. But making it, I don't know. I like to think I'll never think that, because to me it's always about what's next.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what. Thank you so much, Jude. Thanks. We're going to open the floor to the questions now. I mean, I didn't even ask you about your co-stars and all the directors that you've worked with, so please raise your hands, ladies and gentlemen. We have many questions in about 10 minutes, so who's got the first question?
I'll try and keep my answers short.
We have the first question here. Thank you.
Hello, Jude. Hi. And welcome back to Switzerland. I love languages, and I wonder, how does it work when you switch from British English to American English? Is it something that you learn when you are early in your career and then you just apply this knowledge, or is it like ever-evolving process of preparation?
No, each accent each accent is very different. And I use a really brilliant dialect coach called Tim Monarch. And if he's not available, because he's very, very popular, there's another guy called Jerome Butler. And we work very, very hard at it. The thing I've learned is to be very specific. It's no good just saying an American accent. You have to say where in America, what state, what area, what is he working class, is he educated? What does his mum sound like? What does his dad sound like? And then you kind of try all of those and you just hear what comes out. But then really finessing it is tricky. It's hard work to make it plausible. And Hannah mentioned earlier about placement. I mean, some of it's also about where you place the voice. Some people talk through their nose. Some people talk through their chest. Some people talk down the, it depends. And changing all of that can be a big part of finding the character. And you put that question really well, because you talked about the language. It's also how you use language. Sometimes with scripts, you can hear that they've been written, and so you have to de-script the lines you're given, because, we tend to use the same language. Like if you listen to people, some people say like all the time because they like this, because and it's really interesting to add little affectations like that to characters. Do they like using words? If they like a word, what is that word? Or little sayings,
Next question.
Anna, we are over here.
Oh, right at the very back.
Two hands.
There's someone desperate at the front.
I'm over here. You said that you watch a little bit more in the future, but as you go back and you see your first movie, if you ever watch your first movie, how do you feel regarding to your interpretation? Do you have affection, or do you feel more criticism?
Yeah. Did everyone hear that? She asked about rather than looking forward, looking back, and if I've seen any of my early work, and how do I feel? Am I affectionate for it or critical? I haven't seen a lot of my. If I'm honest, I'd be terrified to look at my early work. I mean, there was a huge amount of enthusiasm and what we say in England, winging it, when I was young. And I look back now because I really hadn't sort of figured out the process that I needed to go through to feel like I could play a character. So I think if I were to watch an early film of mine, I'd be like this. I probably would feel a little affection because it may remind me of one of my children. And I would probably be astounded at just how young I was, because I started pretty young, in my early 20s, and but hypercritical, so a little bit of both.
Thank you. Next question.
Yeah. I wonder, do you ever have trouble shaking off a character or the whole story? I mean, you wrap a film and then you move on to the next project. Can you switch gears, or does it linger?
I think they all linger for a while, and sometimes I'm really eager not to. Sometimes you get to the end of an experience on a film and you really can't wait to stop playing them, because you get to work, you put their clothes on, and they assume a certain energy or demand a certain mindset, and it can become exhausting. I played a guy once who had lost a child, and to play him every day on the verge of sort of breakdown was a horrible place to go, and it really put me in an awful headspace, and I was obviously very happy to not go there anymore. So I don't know that it necessarily. You'd have to ask my wife. She'd probably say, yeah, they linger. It's easy when you have a good separation from family and your work, because little children don't listen to excuses of like, I'm still in character, leave me alone. They just can I have my breakfast, please? But there are probably little traits that hang around, and I like to think also there are lessons you learn. Looking at the world through someone else's perspective can be a kind of interesting lesson, and so that experience probably lingers more, that you have an empathy perhaps for someone that you never thought you would.
Thank you. We have a question here. Please wait for the microphone so that we can all hear your question. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, in your film Wilde, you played the lover of Oscar Wilde, Bosie. What is your favorite work of Oscar Wilde?
Probably, it's hard because he was so prolific, and the different mediums were so the novels, plays, poems. I think the importance of being earnest is just sheer joy, and it's possibly the best combination of his work in that it has the quick language, it has the humor, and just genius structure. But De Profundis is kind of heart-wrenching and brilliant.
We have a question here, and we're going to bring the microphone to you. I know that you've been very actively petitioning, and so I'm delighted to offer you the mic.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to have you here. I also wanted to ask, because of Oscar Wilde, where you play his lover, but let's do to another favorite movie of mine, Existence, from David Cronenberg. How was it working in that movie? Because the whole world is artificial, and I think the movie now is even more important than it was then. Do you have a funny story or interesting story about it? How do you, what lasted from that movie making?
I think you're right. I think the great one of the great David Cronenberg, is a visionary, and a lot of his films and the vision of his films are coming to fruition now. And Existence absolutely was way ahead of its time. What was remarkable about working with him is that he does it all in camera, meaning there's no CGI. It's all done there and then, and so you're in that world. I'm trying to think of a good story for you. The obvious story is the Chinese meal, which we shot for nearly a week. So I ate more Chinese food, and there's a scene in it where they bring these mutant reptiles that have been cooked as Chinese. They're like 3-headed lizards and stuff, and obviously they weren't real. They were made of like gelatin and eggplant, and in them are all these bones that I then build into a gun and kill someone with, and that was great fun. But I got really, really sick. I was just eating. I had to eat over and over and over again. It's got one of my favourite lines whenever I say this to people, they always go, "Oh, it's not a great line," but it always makes me laugh. So we're a group of people, and you find out at the end that we're all in a game together, and you don't realise until the end that we're all sort of plugged in and we're all actually playing. And so all these characters pop up as they would in a virtual reality game, and one of them is Willem Dafoe. And he's got that great line when I think I kill someone in front of him, and he goes, "I love that script. I want to be in it." And it's just a kind of existential joke. It's brilliant.
All right, we've got time for just one more question. I'm sorry, and here it is.
Hello, Mr. Law. It's an honor to talk to you. I'm Daniel Shahat. I'm an independent filmmaker. I have 2 questions. My son... Sorry. Okay. All right. My son James is now 2 years old, and whenever I shoot my films in London, I have to leave him here with his wonderful mother for days, but sometimes weeks, and I sometimes struggle with that really a lot. I'm wondering how you have managed to simultaneously have this meaningful career and have a meaningful relationship with your 7 children.
Yeah.
And my second question is, because you have a new production company, I have 2 proof of concepts, and I would like to have...
Give it to these guys.
Okay. I'd like to have 2 minutes of your time, and I will time these 2 minutes, it's not going to be more, with a precision of a Swiss watch.
So to answer your first question, you have to have... I've always thought it's really important to have your family a part of the experience. There's no surprise that people like Coppola, Scorsese, they have their family on set with them, and that's not to say, obviously, if your baby's 2, it's hard. You don't want a 2-year-old interfering with the takes, but I mean, they have to be a part of the adventure. I asked the same question to Paul Newman when I worked with him on The Road to Perdition, and he gave me the greatest answer. I think my son at the time was 4, maybe 5, and I just had his sister. And I was aware that I grew up in a house where, because my parents were teachers, they were home every night and we went on holiday, and I was about to embark on this life of, being a gypsy, traveling, living out of bags, moving to different countries. And he said, look, you're part of the circus. You've got to enjoy it, and your family are a part of that too. And it gives them a unique and really exciting perspective on life, but you've got to involve them. And that's been one of the best parts of my journey, is taking them with me. There's always a way you can figure it out. And if you're away, just don't go away for too long. I used to put a limit on it. Like, I think 2 weeks is max, personally. As for the other question, yeah, there are two of the executives are right here on the front row. You're welcome to come down and... but if it's 2 minutes, I've got to fly really quick, so you might better make your way around now. Quick.
Okay. Well, if that's it, ladies and gentlemen, Jude Law, thank you very much.